Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm excited to bring you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone. It's official. The 2019-2020 season is officially over with the ending of the Champions League final. This unbelievably weird season is over, and now we await a hopefully familiar 2020-21 season. I mean, honestly, I just want things to get back to the way they were, where we can just start watching games again. Of course, it's way easier said than done, but as we see, different leagues starting to bring fans back, hopefully we'll be getting back to some sort of normalcy in our soccer lives. But let's get right into what today's show is going to be all about. In the first segment, I'm going to be talking about the Champions League final, recapping the game, and just talking about what's next for PSG and Bayern as they try to get back to that mountaintop. In the second part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the Premier League 2020-21 season preview, just kind of giving the different races happening throughout the table, and a couple of the top early games happening in the season. In the third part of the show, I'm going to be talking about the MLS and a couple of the games that happened this weekend. And I'm going to mix in a couple top world soccer transfer news, because we know there is some crazy things happening right now. And of course, in my favorite segment, I'm going to be talking about my top 10 center backs in the world today. So let's get right into it with the Champions League final. And I'm going to be starting by just talking about a few of the formations and starting 11 for both squads. And then we're going to just get into the game, some detail of the game. So let's start off with PSG, who normally go with a 4-3-3 formation. And that's exactly what they went with in this game. Of course, they had Navas at between the sticks, as they have had him there through their entire Champions League campaign. And arguably, you could say he's been one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeper in the Champions League this season. And then they have the back line that's been the same throughout. I mean, and actually their entire starting 11 has been the same since pretty much the quarterfinal, because, like Verratti, who would usually be there, has been injured and not fit. And Gueye, Idrissa Gana Gueye, who was probably their most effective defensive midfielder, has fallen out of the rotation. So they've gone with this starting 11 of Carrera at right back, their two center backs of Silva and Kimpembe, and then they had Bernat in the left back position, and then their three midfielders being Herrera, Marquinhos, and Paredes. And then their front three were, as always, Di Maria, Mbappe, and Neymar. And of course, we all know the manager, Thomas Tuchel, who has taken this team as far as not many had expected from them. So, yeah, so that was the formation for PSG in this game. And they did have 4 substitutions with Verratti, Draxler, Choupo-Moting, and Kurzawa. So now going into Bayern's formation and starting 11, they go with a 4-2-3-1 formation. And of course, we all know that it all starts with Neuer, who has been absolutely lights out in these Champions League games, especially in the knockout rounds. It just feels like there's nothing that you can do to get by him, and there was a lot of that in this game as well. Their back line has been the same as it has been all season, with Kimmich, Boateng, Alaba, and Davies taking those spots. In the two center defensive midfielding spots, they had Goretzka and Thiago, but really they're not even center defensive midfielders because they play so far up that they're pretty much just part of the attack. And then the next line was Gnabry, Mueller, and Coman, who were all super important to what they do in the attack. And of course, the all-important striker, Lewandowski, who has probably been the best player in the entire world this season, should win a Ballon d'Or, but, of course, with them canceling that, them canceling that, he's not going to be able to win his first, which is, it kind of sucks for him. But, yeah, and then, of course, probably the manager of the entire year, Hans Flick, is there controlling the side. They did have 4 substitutions as well, with Sul, Coutinho, Perisic, and Tolisso taking over for their respective players. And yep, that's the formation starting 11. So let's just get right into this game. That was a lot more, which was a lot tighter than many expected. I'm sure, me included, expected a blow, not a blowout, but like an explosive offensive game that, with like a 3-2 finish. But instead, we got a 1-0 nail-biter throughout the game. And from a neutral fan perspective, this probably wasn't the most exciting match to watch, with only that one goal was scored between these two like high octane offenses. However, coming from a fan of PSG, who I just experienced my first Champions League final, it is so nerve-wracking. I'm sure if some of you have listened and you've watched a Champions League final for your own club, you know what I'm talking about. It's just like every ball being super important. And, for us just to miss out on what feels like a once-in-a-lifetime chance, it just hurts. I mean, I know many people didn't even expect us to be there. We were underdogs to this huge Bayern Munich team, but that doesn't matter to me. I mean, when you're there, you want to win it, and if you don't, it sucks. But I mean, overall, I'm super happy with what PSG were able to do this season. I mean, to make it to their first Champions League final in history was just unbelievable, and it was just very hard to watch Bayern Munich lift that trophy at the end. I mean, They definitely deserved it with what they've done this year. I mean, they didn't lose a single game this entire Champions League campaign. I mean, I'm sure it's been done before, but that has to be a very exclusive list. And you can see it on the faces of PSG and Bayern Munich players how much this game meant to both. I mean, it doesn't matter that the season is an odd one and there aren't any fans in the stands. I mean, of course, it sucks not to play with fans. I mean, you even heard, if you heard Herrera's curse-filled interview at the end of the game, I mean, he obviously hates playing with fans, and I'm sure plenty of the players feel the same way. However, the passion is obviously still going to be there, and they put on a great show. So let's get right into some of the details of this game. From the start of the match, it had all the tension. I mean, both teams were playing, a bit cautious, of course, but still getting into their game plan. But from the tip, I mean, Bayern Munich just applied tons of pressure on PSG. So many expected this because, I mean, Bayern Munich loved to play a high line, and PSG has yet to show that they can handle being pressured, and even there was times in Ligue 1 where that's just how some of these teams, some of these French teams have been able to upset them this year, and it just showed. PSG just could not handle it, and even though they lost 1-0, when you're playing a team as complete as Bayern, you have to take advantage of any chance you get. And they did get a few in this game. Just like Lyon in the semifinal against Bayern, we had chances. I mean, clear chances. And I was always saying, I said it after the Lyon game. I mean, Bayern better not do this against PSG because they're gonna get beat. And they did the same thing against PSG. Not as many chances because, of course, they were being a little more cautious with players like Mbappe, Di Maria, Neymar possibly getting through the line. But there were still chances there early in the game and throughout the game. I mean, PSG did well to, have chances, but they just did not convert them. I never thought I would have said that. I just felt like in a game as big as this, guys, top quality players like Mbappe, Neymar, Di Maria would take care of their chances, and all three of them messed up chances. I mean, Di Maria had a clear chance inside the box that was off a really nice pass from I believe Neymar, and he completely launched it over the bar. I mean, I couldn't believe it, and when I saw that happen, I really started to feel like it was like exactly what happened with Lyon, where they missed up their chances, and then Bayern eventually got into the game, the rhythm of the game, and just scored nonstop on them. Luckily, that wasn't the case in this game because the defense from PSG was actually very strong. I mean, Kimpembe has been looking like one of the best center backs in the world, and Thiago Silva, of course, continues to show that he has world-class skill at the age of 35. I mean, great performances from both of them. I mean, if it wasn't for them, this game could have easily been like a 3-0 thrashing. But, of course, it wasn't. But one of the players that really surprised me from the PSG side was Gerard. I mean, I'm the first to say that he does a lot of mistakes, and I always was on him about it, but there was something about him in this game. He just continued to produce and just not make those usual mistakes that you expect from him in this game. I mean, when he was getting pressured by Bayern Munich, he just made things happen. He was able to draw fouls, like usually in those situations where he'd lose the ball or make a bad decision. He was able to hold it and draw fouls and continue momentum for PSG. But it obviously just wasn't enough because, I mean, when it came to the final third, that's where it fell apart for him. He just didn't have that composure to just finish off his runs or finish off those solid team connection plays. On Bayern's side, I mean, literally every set piece, every cross just felt like a threat because of these strong runs that guys like Lewandowski, Müller, Goretzka, all of them just were all over the PSG defense. I mean, you had obviously, you had Paredes, you had Herrera, and of course Silva and Kimpembe in the box trying to head them away, and they did it for literally the entire game. But it just felt like eventually they were going to get something going, and it just so happened to be that off another cross, they did give up that goal to Coman, which I'll get to later. But there was like I was saying in the beginning, there were so many golden chances for PSG, but specifically in the 45th minute, Mbappe was wide open in the box. I'm talking wide open. Nobody was near him. All they had to do was just put a solid foot on the ball that was delivered to him by, I believe, Di Maria, and just put it in the back of the net. But he put such a weak shot, and it fell right into the hands of Neuer. I mean, there was no way Neuer wasn't going to stop that. When you have a world-class keeper, a guy who's been one of the best keepers in the world for so long, in front of you, you need a solid shot to get by him, and that just wasn't going to cut it in this game. Like in the last seconds of the first half, Coman, who was probably like the best player for Bayern in his minutes for the club, found a way past Gerard in the box, and there was some contact. There was a little bit of contact. Gerard put his hand on his shoulder, and Coman fell in the box. However, no penalty was given. I mean, you look on Twitter, people were like shouting that should have been a penalty. Others were saying no, he kind of fell too quick. I'm kind of like with that second group where I mean, obviously I'm a PSG fan, so I didn't want that to be a penalty, but I felt like Coman fell a little too easy there. He kind of like lost his balance. I don't think Gerard really like pulled him back. I mean, I understand what the rule is, but in a Champions League final, you need something a little more like substantial than that. You can't just, a little touch on the shoulder is not going to just give you a penalty in the final. But yeah, that was pretty much it for that first half. There were a lot of close moments for both teams, and like I said, the nerves were very high, and that's expected for a final. But one team would go on to make the right adjustments at halftime, and we obviously know who that was. To start the second half, I mean, Bayern Munich just continued with that high pressure, keeping PSG uncomfortable, and they just were, and it was just more effective for them in this second half. PSG didn't have that same connection that they got in the first half. I mean, they did get a few chances here and there, especially late in the second half where things were getting tight for them, with them down a goal, but it just didn't feel the same. But the thing is, the tensions were still running high, obviously, because Gnabry started fouling Neymar a couple times in a row, and Paredes didn't like that, got in the face of him and started pushing him. But the Argentine midfielder, he didn't. It was just too much. His reaction was overblown. He didn't need to do that. There was no ill will between Gnabry and Neymar. I mean, Neymar. He kind of bids players into kind of like going in too far, and it sometimes gets to him. And it obviously got to Gnabry on that play. But there's no need for that. I mean, both the Gnabry and Paredes got a yellow card on that play, so it was just unnecessary. But the biggest difference that I noticed in the second half was the attack of Bayern, who they continued to load the box, like as always, but they started attacking from the right side of the pitch. So you started seeing Kimmich with the ball a lot more, and Coleman, instead of having the ball at his feet as often, he started making those runs into the box. And that's what led to that lone goal in this game. Kerr was kind of having to cover multiple guys in the box. And of course, if you're Kerr and you see Lewandowski in front of you, you're going to go to him when there's a cross coming in. I mean, it's just common sense. But like I said in the preview, when players start to focus on Lewandowski, it opens up things for his other teammates. And that's exactly what happened for Coleman on this cross. He was left wide open at the back post, and Kerr didn't have enough momentum to really clear the ball. And he just had an open header that got right past Navas and to go up 1-0. And Bayern did this a few more times in the second half, and they got some more solid chances to double up their lead. But Kimpembe and Silva just stepped up with really solid clearances. I mean, Kimpembe specifically, who made a ridiculous diving clearance from a Coman cross. It would have resulted in a Lewandowski goal. No question about it. All Lewandowski had to do was tip it in, because it was a really nice cross from Coman. But dude, you got to go and look at that diving clearance. It was one of those things that if PSG would have come around and actually won this game, that would have been one of the plays of the game, no question. But there was also a few good chances for PSG after the goal. Mbappe just couldn't connect on a solid cross from Di Maria. I mean, it was kind of tough. He would have had to do like some kind of back heel, but it didn't really matter, because Neuer was going to stop it all. It just felt like the German keeper, nothing could go by him. There was actually this one specific shot that just wowed me, because I was just like, yeah, there's nothing we can do to get past Neuer, where Mbappe took a shot with no one near him, and Neuer stopped it. And Mbappe was completely offside, so it wouldn't have counted anyways. But to see Neuer stop it with like Mbappe having all this space to just go and put in the goal, just to kind of like see it hit the back of the net, get a little, at least feel good about it. No, Neuer stopped it. And I know that doesn't really count towards the game, but it puts something into the minds of PSG players to just know there's nothing they're going to be able to do to really get by this guy. And however, Bayern looked so organized out there. They just, even though PSG did get a lot of opportunities, and this game was a lot closer than it might have felt, Bayern was just way more organized, and they stifled PSG at every turn. In the 65th minute, PSG did make their first substitution, putting in Verratti for Paredes, trying to get some more control in the midfield and help against that Bayern Munich press. but it was clear why Verratti wasn't chosen for the starting 11. He just didn't have the right rhythm. He made mistakes that he usually doesn't make. And that was definitely a big loss for PSG. I mean, because when he's right, he's easily one of the best midfielders in the world. Because just look at on the other side. Bayern Munich having Thiago in there. He's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and get you goals and assists, but he'll control the game from where he's at, making the right passes, handling the pressure that PSG gives to him. It's literally the same thing that Verratti would have given, but yeah, it was pretty much all she wrote. I mean, at the end of the game, Neymar just looked so exhausted. He couldn't get anything going. Even his usual magic that he can pull off wasn't there. And honestly, that's because Hans Flick and his defensive tactics worked. I mean, as they have all season. I mean, I mentioned it in the preview, the way he was able to stop Messi in that Barcelona, quarterfinal. It's the same thing, and that's why I expected Bayern Munich to come on top in this one, and that's exactly what they did, winning the Champions League final 1-0. And I'm sorry if I don't sound all like up and about, because it's just that's my PSG team, man. It just hurt. But yeah, that was the game, and the man of the match, I was really close to giving it to Coman, because he was pretty much doing it all in his time with the when he was on the pitch. But I have to give it to Joshua Kimmich. I mean, he supplied the assist for Coman. He had the most touches on the squad with 96. Obviously, he was huge on defense with 8 of 12 duels, 1 of 1 aerials, 7 recoveries. And he was passing it. He was actually the best passer on the night with 85% pass completion of his 59 passes. I mean, he was just doing it all for Bayern. Some of the guys I want to mention have to go with Neuer, which I've already said plenty. It just felt like nothing was going to get by him. Of course, Coman, who would put that lone goal to win the game, and did so many really strong runs for Bayern. And of course, Thiago, who, like I've already said, controlled the midfield throughout the night. And if you've noticed, there's two players on this that I have not mentioned, and that's Lewandowski and Müller. I mean, think about that. The fact that I haven't even mentioned those, like, they're the 2 best players throughout the season, and they were still able to come out on top in this game. They didn't have really crazy games. I mean, obviously they, still drew a lot of attention, and it opened things up for their teammates, but it just goes to show how strong of a club this Bayern Munich side was, and the better team won overall. So what's next for these two teams? I mean, well, for PSG, usually they'd be looking for a new manager after another failed, Champions League campaign without the title. But Tuchel took them as far as anyone ever has. So there's no changes happening there. The biggest thing I would say is that they need to try to fix the defense, because now Thiago Silva, probably the best defender in their history, is leaving. And of course, Gueye, I mean, he's been rumored to be on the way out. But I don't think, like, their top players, Mbappe and Neymar, I do not see them leaving. Especially with, the kind of financial hit that all these clubs have been taking with the pandemic. It's just no one has enough money to buy them. So they're not going anywhere. PSG just needs to continue to bring in high character guys. Guys like Herrera, Navas, that follows that trend, and they need to continue going in that direction. For Bayern Munich, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that Bayern are the best team in the entire world. And they're actually bringing back all of their key pieces. Only Perisic and Coutinho won't be on the team for the next campaign because their loan spells have ended. However, they are bringing in Leroy Sané to fill in that Coutinho role and Perisic role. I mean, it's just perfect. So arguably they're going to be even better and younger. There are some rumors that Alaba can be on his way out because he has not signed an extension yet. And Boateng did have a solid season under Flick, which is encouraging, but he's on the wrong side of 30. And he did have injury issues throughout the year. I mean, obviously including in which I didn't even mention. He got injured really early in the Champions League final, and they had to put in Sewell for him, who is also solid. But I think they need to add another defender for depth purposes. So really, that's the only thing I see that Bayern Munich needs to improve in. But don't be surprised if you see them go back-to-back, because this team is a machine. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the 2020-21 Premier League season.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, I talked about the Champions League final and recapped the game in its entirety, and now I'm going to be talking about the upcoming Premier League season. I've said it once already, this is easily my favorite part about soccer. Even though we just finished the previous season with the Champions League final wrapping up, we already have domestic league soccer schedules out, and the games are right around the corner. So I'm going to start previewing the top 5 leagues in Europe, and of course starting with the most popular league in the world, the Premier League. The schedule is out, like I've said, and match week 1 will be on September 12th. So let's look at some of the exciting races throughout the table, starting with, of course, the title race. And I believe this is going to be probably the most exciting title race in recent memory, as we have Liverpool, of course, the defending title winners, Manchester City, Manchester United, and Chelsea all eyeing the title this season. All four, especially the last two, have made big improvements to actually become contenders. So this is going to be a really, really exciting year. So let's talk about each team and see where they're at heading into this upcoming season. So with Liverpool, they ran away with last year's title, and it was definitely well-deserved. But it's safe to say Manchester City were dealing with a key injury with Laporte out for more than half the year. Liverpool have been the best team in the Premier League, but it just doesn't look like they'll be spending big in this year's transfer window. I feel like that's going to be a mistake because Manchester City has already made big signings, and there's been rumors that they're linked with Messi, which we'll talk about later. Manchester United has made some big signings. Well, not big signings, but they've at least they'll have their biggest signing from last season for the entire year. And do I need to even talk about Chelsea and what they've done? So I feel like Liverpool need to get some budget to be able to make these big signings. And the one that they're primarily linked to is Thiago, who just finished winning the Champions League with Bayern, and this would be a huge signing for them. And exactly what they need to defend their title. Manchester City is not going to just go, lie down. They have Laporte coming back. They got Ak, another defender. They have Ferran Torres. They need to answer with another big signing. They have a really solid club. When I talked about the top 10 Premier League players, it was had 6 Liverpool players on there. But if they don't make this Thiago move, the title race is going to be a lot closer than many people might think. So now getting into Manchester City, like I've already said, Manchester City struggled for most of last season, and they didn't look the same as years past. And it's not to say that it was a poor season. It's just the standard that Man City have set for themselves being the most expensive club in the world. They have had a few key departures with, obviously I already said, Leroy Sané got his dream move to Bayern Munich, and Man City legend David Silva has gone back to his home country to play with Real Sociedad. So they're definitely losing some guys, but like I've already said, they did make solid additions with defender Nathan Ack from Bournemouth and winger Ferran Torres. Both will add depth, but they aren't really going to be game changers. I mean, Man City already has probably one of the best best offenses in the Premier League, and can definitely keep up with Liverpool on that side. However, they need to add more depth in the defense. It's possible that they're going to be losing Otamendi and Fernandinho, I believe. So to really challenge for the title, they need to add more defense. The biggest name that they're actually linked to is Kulibali, and this would create a wall for Pep Guardiola alongside Laporte. I mean, to have two of the top, I'm not going to say it because I'd be ruining the last segment, but two of the best defenders in the world on your team. I mean, along with that offense, that's scary to even think, and it would be a huge boost for Manchester City. So now getting into Manchester United, they stormed their way into the top three last season and are looking primed for a really strong upcoming season. I mean, adding Bruno Fernandes was easily the biggest signing of the entire Premier League last season, and to be able to have that guy for a full season should have Manchester United in the thick of the title race. I mean, when you saw the way he just calmly takes those penalties, I mean, he's a great leader for the squad. Unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to add anything big. I mean, they did get Dean Henderson from Sheffield United. That is a big move, and it'll be interesting to see how that goalkeeping battle with De Gea plays out. However, the race for Jadon Sancho didn't come to fruition for Manchester United, as they were unwilling to pay Borussia Dortmund that high asking price. They were asking for over 100 million, and like I've said already in this episode, the pandemic has caused a lot of financial problems for these clubs, so it's going to be very hard for teams to pay top dollar for players, even if they're as good as Jadon Sancho. Manchester United did get back Marcus Rojo from loan, and that should add some depth if they decide to keep him, but I still believe Manchester United are a midfield move away from being true contenders. Jack Grealish from Aston Villa would be huge, but the thing is, they're also probably looking to cash in on their top star. So again, it would be very hard to make a big money move, but I do believe Manchester United need to make that move in order to be official contenders in this race. And now, moving on to Chelsea. Chelsea were easily the biggest surprise of the season last year, at least among the top clubs, as they finished fourth in the league. And now you're bringing in top talent like Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech. I mean, this is huge for the club. I mean, they did lose out on guys lose club staples Willian and Pedro as they left on a free transfer. But with the amount of talent that they are bringing in, that won't be leaving a hole in the attack. I mean, Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech are, I don't know how to say it, 100 times better. I mean, way better than what Willian and Pedro have done. I mean, of course, Willian, I'm saying those guys are obviously have been super big for this Chelsea club, but they won't be missed. I mean, at least not this season. They are still expected to make even more signings, which is hard to even believe. They're close to agreeing to deals with Kai Havertz, Ben Chilwell from Liverpool, and Thiago Silva from PSG. I mean, if they're able to add all this talent to a squad that already has Pulisic, Mount, and Kante, I mean, watch out for Chelsea next season. I mean, of course, it's not all just said and done if they have this talent. I mean, there are going to be a very high quality side, but when you bring in a lot of talent in like that, where they all just kind of mesh in at the same time, it's not as easy as it looks. And Lampard's going to have a lot of players to shuffle around in his club. I mean, that's always a good, thing to have a lot of different options. But at the same time, it's going to be, it might be a little difficult to find the right match. So, but no doubt in my mind, Chelsea's going to be right up there with these top 4 clubs and challenge for the title race. Now, going into the next tier, I feel like for the European competition race, we got Leicester City, Tottenham, Arsenal, and Wolverhampton. So let's start off with Arsenal. They made that all-important decision of holding on to Aubameyang. I mean, he was the most important player to Arsenal's success last season, and he's going to lead the group once again. However, he's going to have some big-time help this time around, as Arsenal did bring in the aforementioned Willian on a free transfer. I mean, his experience in the Premier League is going to be huge for this side, for Arteta's side. And they've also made a solid signing for Lille defender Gabriel, whatever. I always feel like I have to put some kind of accent on these names. But for 27 million euros, he's going to help immensely for that back line, which was probably the biggest weakness for Arsenal last season. I could see them finishing 5th this upcoming, I can see them finishing 5th this upcoming season. But to challenge the top 4, I feel like they're going to have to get a lot more quality into the side, especially with them losing Lacazette. I mean, Pepe is going to have to actually live up to that huge transfer fee. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Let's see, Leicester City. Leicester City is possibly, like I already said, is reported to have been losing one of their top players in Ben Chilwell. It's going to be difficult for them to have another top 4 finish this year with that loss. However, European competition is most definitely in the cards for Leicester City. They still have key pieces in Jamie Vardy, and Ndidi, and Maddison. Plus, with the funds they get from Chilwell, they could look to add to their midfield with attacking midfielder Jonathan Ikong from Lille, rumored to be looking for a move. So if they can add that in there and improve that attack of theirs, I could definitely see Leicester making some moves. But to challenge up there in the top 4, especially with those 4 clubs looking as good as they are, I just don't see it. Next, we got Tottenham. And Tottenham have probably been one of the bigger disappointments from last season after they failed to improve from their Champions League final appearance. They're easily the biggest mystery heading into this new season. You got Mourinho trying to show that he's still got it, and I could see them surprising some people and pushing for a top 4 finish with the amount of quality that they have. I mean, among these 4 teams that I'm talking about in this European competition race, Tottenham have the most quality. It's just, can they put it all together for a full season? That's the question. And they have bolstered their midfield by permanently signing Gio Lo Celso from Real Betis and signing Hosberg from Southampton. That being probably the biggest signing, as they essentially signed him for $3 million, as they made the switch, a swap with Kyle Walker-Peters that was sent to the Saints. Both of those additions will be key to Tottenham's revival, along with, of course, their talisman striker Harry Kane, and then you also got guys like Song and Lucas that have been huge for that team. It's just, until they show me that they've, are back to being consistently good on a week-to-week basis, I can't give them any more hype than that. Next, we got the Wolves, who are just hanging on to this spot by a thread. I mean, you can easily see them fall down and be a mid-table squad, but they are probably one of the most exciting teams to watch. Even with Raul Jimenez, their star striker, rumored to be going to Juventus in the transfer window, they still have solid guys like Adama Traore, Moutinho, it's Neves. I mean, they have really, really strong players, and they have been linked to guys like Lucas Ocampos from Sevilla, Maitland-Niles from Arsenal, and Idrissa Gueye from PSG. All these would be excellent additions for this team that needs a lot more quality if they're looking to compete for that European competition that they just missed out on last season. So next, let's get into the mid-table clubs. These are the ones that I just feel like, they're going to be a little inconsistent, but they're going to do it just enough to stay out of that relegation battle. So I'm going to be talking about Burnley, Aston Villa, Sheffield United, Leeds United, who was recently promoted from the Championship, Southampton, Everton, and of course, Brighton, Hove Albion. So let's start off with Burnley, as they have always been a side that many underrate, and for good reason. I mean, they have a very small budget and are rarely in the transfer rumors. However, they have one of the best managers in the Premier League in Sean Dyke. I believe it's Dyke, but he's done an amazing job keeping Burnley in the English top flight with his limited resources, and he's probably the best tactician in the entire world. Overall, the club is solid, but should probably look to add some midfield help after the departure of Jeff Hendrick. Next, we're going to talk about Aston Villa. They just barely escaped the relegation zone last season. So honestly, I don't know why I'm putting this much faith in them. Manager Dean Smith has the quality and transfer budget to stay above this tier, or at least stay at the top of this tier. They just don't. Jack Grealish, like I said, he's been rumored to possibly move to Manchester United, but who knows? I mean, I feel like he's probably going to stay with, it just being tough to make big money moves for any kind of club. And he's obviously going to stay in the Premier League. But if Jack Grealish stays and John McGinn can stay healthy for a full season, I definitely see a much better Villa side in this season ahead. Now, for Sheffield United, they had a very strong season last year, finishing 9th, and they look like they're here to stay. They did lose Dean Henderson to Manchester United with the loan spell being done, but we knew that was happening. So they signed Aaron Ramsdale from Bournemouth to replace him. Don't expect as good a season from Sheffield United. However, I do expect them to at least stay relatively good. A mid-table squad. Definitely not as good as last season. For Leeds United, after a strong showing in the Championship last season, Leeds finds themselves in the Premier League after a 16-year drought. Signing Helder Costa permanently and bringing back Jack Harrison on loan from Manchester City to surround their top striker, Patrick Bamford, will be huge to their success this season. And it's been reported recently that they're bringing in striker Rodrigo from Valencia, who's going to bring in a lot of experience to the side, and it's going to be huge for their goal to stay in the top flight. For Everton, I mean, for as long as I've been a soccer fan, Everton have been woeful. They have a team that has good quality and should be in the top half of the table consistently. They just don't. They're always putting in just lack of effort, performances. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti was brought in there to try and change the direction of this club, but they finished 12th. I mean, expect another disappointing season unless they can make some transfer noise, which I've recently heard could be James Rodriguez coming in. I mean, that would be a huge, huge signing for Everton and probably exactly what both sides need to resurrect their careers. I mean, at least for Everton to resurrect their franchise and, for James to resurrect his career. So now with Southampton, they've lost a big piece from last year's 11th place finish in Pierre Hosberg to I believe, what team was I talking about? To the Wolves. But, where am I? Oh my God, I'm messing my stuff up here. But they were able to bring in young defenders Mohamed Salisu and Kyle Walker-Peters. Danny Ings will be among the best strikers in the league once again, and hoping he stays healthy. I mean, knock on wood. They also need Redmond to step up big time if they're to lead this tier. They have the quality, but they need more. They definitely need more to possibly, surprise people again this year. Now for Brighton had an underwhelming season, battling relegation for most of the year and finishing 15th. However, they have made some really solid signings, bringing in Adam Lallana from Liverpool, who is super underappreciated there at Liverpool, and Joel Veltman from Ajax. two experienced players who will be bringing a lot of quality to the side. And for me, Brighton are my pick for surprise of the season. So watch out for them to possibly lead this group of mid-table clubs. So now I'm going to be talking about the relegation race. And we got Crystal Palace, West Brom Albion, Fulham, Newcastle United, and West Ham. Now, for Newcastle United, I mean, there's just too much turmoil in that club for me to back them at all this season. St. Maximin is their top player, but Matthew Longstaff is their most promising. Steve Bruce was brought on to manage this complete mess, and he has made the best of it. If they stay in the top flight, I mean, I'll be surprised, but they'll definitely be in the relegation battle for most of the year. Crystal Palace, Roy Hodgson is another manager that has done more than anyone expected for Crystal Palace as he's pulled off miracles at Selhurst Park. However, his club is a one-man team with Wilfried Zaha doing everything he can and still consistently finishes in the bottom half of the table. He deserves a lot better than this club, but it doesn't look like he's going to get that transfer with all these financial problems going on throughout the world. So that does give Palace a leg up in this race with them keeping Zaha. But man, it's just another disappointing season coming up ahead. West Ham United, their manager David Moyes did well keeping this club out of the relegation zone, but looks to have an even tougher challenge next season, with top clubs rumored to take their two key players, Declan Rice and Michail Antonio. If they expect this if they leave this West Ham side, expect them in the championship next season, no doubt about it. West Brom are freshly promoted from the championship and will look for a strong season in the top flight. They've been able to permanently sign key winger Matthias Pereira, but they just need more quality in the midfield. I see them battling relegation all year and heading back to the championship. And for Fulham, they just made it into the Premier League with a playoff win in the championship, but they are definitely the weakest side among all 20 teams heading into this season. They are linked to some top young talent in Ollie Watkins from Brentford, Ryan Sessegnon from Tottenham, and Oliver Skip from Norwich. But even that won't save this side from a season-long relegation battle. Now, real quick, I want to talk about a few of the top games to watch early on in this season. And we have a really exciting one with Liverpool and Arsenal fighting off in the Community Shield. This is going to be the first game to kick off the new campaign, and it'll be interesting to see if Arsenal can keep up with Liverpool. Probably not, but if they do win this, it would be a huge boost for this team that is trying to make it back to the top of the table. Another big match would be Manchester City versus Wolves. Manchester City got to get a really early test to start the season, with 3 of their first 4 games being against teams that finished in the top 8 last year, but none will be bigger than this one. Man City lost twice to the Wolves last year, including a thriller 3-2 loss in late December. Ederson picked up a really ridiculous red card in this game, and I'm sure City will be itching to get their revenge. Another one would be Manchester United versus Tottenham, a battle between two clubs seemingly heading in different directions lately. Jose Mourinho is going to be taking on his former club, and with a Tottenham side that are trying to find an identity. A win from either side would just be huge to kick off this season. And of course, we got Chelsea versus Liverpool. This is going to be a huge early test for Chelsea and their new signings to deliver a statement for the rest of the league. It will also hurt Liverpool fans to see Timo Werner in a Chelsea uniform, as they were linked to him for a long time. And honestly, this will be 2 high-quality sides going at it. So expect a lot of fireworks in this one. So that's going to finish it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about some of the top MLS games from this weekend, as well as some world transfer news.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last segment, I talked about the Premier League upcoming season, a few of the title races, and of course, some of the top early games coming up. But now, I'm going to be talking about the MLS and some of the top games that occurred this weekend, and of course, some of the top transfer news going on in the world. So let's just get this started with the LA Galaxy taking on the LAFC, the El Tráfico game that is always expected to have a lot of high scoring and a lot of surprises, and this one was no different. This was supposed to be an easy El Tráfico victory for LAFC, as it was two Los Angeles teams literally heading in opposite directions. LAFC literally obliterated LA Galaxy 6-2 in the MLS's back tournament last month. Chicharito was still out for the LA Galaxy, while LAFC were getting back their reigning MVP, Carlos Vela, who opted out of the MLS's back tournament. However, it was the Galaxy who came out on top and took advantage of their chances when they came. Early in the game, actually throughout the entire game, LAFC was putting pressure on the Galaxy to keep a majority of the possession, but they did little to nothing with the chances that they put together. The disappointment for LAFC has to be their defense, and of course, I need to mention Carlos Vela leaving early in the second half with a left knee injury, and he's going to be out for the remainder of the Phase 1 restart. But however, this LAFC defense just showed no presence in the box, with both goals being unmarked players Zubac and Letget. I don't know how to say that name, but they were just completely unmarked and had easy goals. So this was just a great start for LA Galaxy, who just looked like a mess in the MLS's back tournament and looked to have a really bad season ahead. But this gives them a really good boost to right their wrongs and get back on top. Plus, Zubac looks like the real deal. Scoring in his first MLS goal in just his second start, filling in for Chicharito, this was big. So when they get him back, you're hoping that their type signing is going to just take them to a new level. The man of the match has to go to Julian Araujo. He had an impact throughout this entire game, and he had a hand in both goals, collecting 2 assists, and creating chances for his club just throughout this night. He was easily their best creator and was just all over the place. Next, we had my favorite game of the weekend, with Inter Miami defeating Orlando City 3-2. Even though this was just the first game of the MLS's Phase 1, it still had a lot riding for both teams. For Orlando City, it was a chance to show that their run to the final in the MLS's back tournament wasn't a fluke after years of mediocrity. And for Inter Miami, it was their home opener that was postponed by 5 months, and their opportunity to pick up their first MLS win. And this game got off to a hot start, with Miami starting the scoring with a solid near-post goal from Carranza, Inter Miami's first ever signing, no less. And it was a really good assist from Pizarro. He started the attack, and he found Carranza making a solid run into the box, and it was a good goal overall. However, that lead did not last very long, with rookie Dyke earning himself a well-deserved goal with multiple tries at goal. He had like 3 kicks, and on that third one, it took a deflection and it got past Luis Robles to tie it up at 1-1. However, that score didn't last very long either, as just 5 minutes later, a beautiful cross. I'm talking about, it doesn't get any better than this, from Ben Sweat found Carranza, who headed it past Galesi for his brace. Everything about that goal was beautiful. I mean, the cross, the header, to just go across goal into the other side of the net. I mean, it was just so nice overall. And Inter Miami just continued to put pressure on Orlando City with some solid attacking connections. I mean, they had been showing this in their previous games. The problem with Inter was that when they had a lead or they had a tie to get points, their defense failed towards the end of the game. They just didn't have that clutch gene in that defense. And it felt like it was going to be more of the same as... and before I even talk about that, early in the second half, the pressure from Inter Milan that Inter Miami placed on Orlando City was rewarded with a solid bounce off a cross that landed right at the feet of Pizarro, and he placed just a super nice, accurate, just calm finish into the bottom right corner to make it 3-1 for Miami. So they had a really solid lead. And like I was saying, in their previous games, they have given up those leads or ties with late, brutal goals. And it felt like it was going to be more of the same when Nani was found in the back post and headed it into the goal off a solid Mueller cross in the 80th minute. However, in this game, Inter Miami were able to hold on and come away with their first ever MLS victory. It sucks that it was not in front of fans because, of course, like we know in Miami, and I know specifically, it's really bad over here, so do not expect there to be any fans at those games anytime soon. But it was still a huge, huge victory for for Inter Miami and their franchise. The man of the match has to go to Julian Carranza, who scored his first 2 MLS goals in this game, and it helped lead Inter Miami to their first ever victory. He was also very active defensively and accurate with his passes. So he was all over the place, doing it all for Inter Miami. Now let's talk about Atlanta United versus Nashville SC, with Atlanta United coming out on top 2-0. This was another big game as Atlanta United had yet to win a game in this weird MLS season and have been given nothing but bad news with star striker Josef Martinez out for the year before play was suspended due to COVID. And for Nashville SC, on the other hand, they haven't looked like an expansion side to start their inaugural campaign, beating teams like Montreal Impact and FC Dallas. And they didn't really, like we know already, they had to bow out of the MLS's back tournament. So who knows? They could have made some really, big noise in that tournament as well. However, there of course are going to be ups and downs throughout this season for them, and this was one of those downs. Atlanta United finally won their first MLS game of the season, and it took much longer than anyone expected. Nashville did look strong to start the game, and we're getting solid looks at goal. You can say Nashville played like the better team. However, the individual quality of Atlanta United got them over the top. Early in the game, Nashville's Randall Leal, this is probably my favorite part of the game, Randall Leal made Eric Remedy look silly with a beautiful nutmeg that led to a solid chance for Nashville, but they just couldn't find the back of the net. And this was pretty much the theme of the game for Nashville, who had 15 shots to Atlanta's 6. So they were definitely, putting the pressure on Atlanta. They just couldn't take advantage of those chances. It feels a lot like PSG, but, there she goes. This game was taken by Atlanta's top player, Gonzalo Martinez. No doubt about it. He had 2 amazing goals in this game. And so far, this has been the most exciting performance by any player that I've seen so far this season. The first of his goals came off a long ball from Remedy that was met Martinez on this run that he was making. But that first touch he had off the cross or off the long ball was just amazing. It pretty much set up the rest of his goal because he didn't have to, put an extra touch to get into the box. It was just perfect. But then he cuts inside and just completely just opens up the Nashville defense and then finishes it off with a beautiful toe touch goal. I mean, just everything about that run was amazing from Martinez, and somehow he was able to top that with his second one. As he started the break with a really nice leading pass to Torres, but then Torres had a really bad first touch and had to give a lead pass to Adams. And that lead pass was bad. It actually took him away from the goal. So what did Martinez have to do? He was running in, making that run, and Adams found him outside the box, and Martinez launched a ridiculous rocket from outside the box, which the goalkeeper had literally no chance to stop. I'm talking he kicked it, and by the time the goalkeeper tried to stop it, it was already into the goal. Nashville did have some solid opportunities late in the goal, but Atlanta goalkeeper Brad Guzan just came through for his club with some great saves. This was a close game. This was really close, and Nashville definitely put the pressure onto Atlanta. But like I said, the individual quality of Martinez was just too much to handle. And of course, who else would be the man of the match in this game than Gonzalo Martinez? He was an absolute beast for Atlanta United as he helped them return to their winning ways with his 2 goals. Next, we're going to be talking about Real Salt Lake versus Colorado Rapids, who defeated Real Salt Lake defeating the Rapids 4-1. This game was a case of one team bringing their shooting boots and another forgetting them in the bus. Real Salt Lake dominated this game from the start as they kept most of the possession throughout the game. The first half was pretty uneventful for both teams, but the lone chance Colorado put together resulted in an own goal by Aaron Herrera. Really, it was because of the poor slide by Justin Glad. It left Diego Rubio with enough space to try and pick out a player in the box, and Herrera had to make a desperate slide, which resulted in a deflection into the goal by him. So that was pretty much all that happened in the first half for both teams. The second half started with more of the same from Real Salt Lake, controlling the midfield and applying pressure on the Rapids. And the Rapids just couldn't handle it and were making terrible touches. This eventually led to a Real Salt Lake goal. And what a first goal that was. As Justin Merrim found Krielich wide open outside the box, and he rocketed it, just an absolute bomb into the top right corner. It was definitely the goal of the night, and but it was not enough to be the man of the match, because that would soon be the man who's coming up next, who got substituted in at halftime, Michael Chang, as he scored his first MLS goal off an error from Colorado goalkeeper Yarborough, who just couldn't hold on to a through pass by Merrim, and the bounce was just set up perfectly for Chang. And he wasn't done there. But Colorado midfielder Namli almost had one of the goals of the season as he took a shot from outside the box, and it had a crazy curve on it that hit the post and rolled right past the front of the goal. I felt bad for him because this was just, you got to give it to him. When you have that kind of, I can't say it on air, but when you got that to take that kind of shot from outside the post like that, or from outside the box like that, and it hits the post like that, you needs to go in. But that was as close as the Rapids would get, as Chang would then take care of business, creating not one, but 2 goals for his club. The first was off a solid run in which he beat 2 defenders and found Baird inside the box for a solid finish. The second was a ridiculous cross that skied over the entire Colorado defense and found Merrim wide open at the back post. Huge game from Mikhail Chang, and the Cuban international was the man of the match for this game. He came on at halftime and completely changed the game for Real Salt Lake. One of the best performances from a sub that I've seen in a long time. So next we're going to be talking about Seattle Sounders versus the Portland Timbers, with the Sounders coming out on top 3-0. This was the first game back for both teams since the MLS is back tournament, so obviously both were looking to, get off on a good note. Portland were looking to continue their strong play from the tournament into their first regular season game, and Seattle were hoping to get back on track after a disappointing round of 16 loss to LAFC. Both teams barely made chances for themselves throughout the first half, but when they did, there was little to show for it. Portland had a beautiful goal from outside the box by Chris Duval called off due to an offside call early in the game. And they had another chance late in the first half, but Valeri completely misshot it. I mean, if he would have made that, he would have just had the composure. I mean, and you would expect that from a veteran like Valeri to just slot that home and Timbers be up 1-0. But that just was not the case. But the second half was definitely a bit more exciting with both teams having chances at goal. Fortunately for the Sounders, Rui Diaz was on their team as he had a part in all 3 goals. His first was hard to believe as a strong cross from Jones was met by a perfect touch from Rui Diaz that just squeaked by the Timbers goalkeeper. I mean, even the announcers were surprised that it went in because they had a delayed reaction to it. They thought it was maybe outside the goal because it just, when I saw him take that touch from where he was, I thought there was no chance, but it found a way past the Timbers goalkeeper. But shortly after, Portland actually had a golden chance at goal to tie up the game with a long cross that found Sebastian Blanco, the MVP of the MLS's back tournament, in the box. His perfect first touch set up a good look at goal, but Stefan Frey made a diving save to keep the momentum on Seattle's side. And after that, the Sounders would just put this game away in the 85th minute as Rudiaz got a pass in the box, and as he drew the defenders in, he found Kevin Leardom for his first MLS goal. I mean, just a huge night overall for Rudiaz as he had 2 goals and 1 assist in this match. I mean, and who else would have won man of the match but him? He did it all for the Sounders, and when it mattered, he was really the guy that really put his team on his back, and he continues to be the best player for them. So that's going to wrap it up for the MLS. Now let's get into the juicy stuff with the top transfer news in the world. And where else do I start but Messi saying that he wants to leave Barcelona? What? The GOAT? Are you kidding me? The man who has literally spent his entire playing career in Camp Nou has officially told the board that he wants to leave. I mean, it's no surprise the soccer world has gone crazy with this news, with almost every club, every top club at least, being linked to him, and fans everywhere supporting Messi's decision because of how big of a mess Barcelona are in. I mean, Messi and Koeman, actually, the new manager for Barcelona, had a talk, and he told Messi that his privileges were over, and he had to think about the team. Messi made his decision to leave after this, and can you blame him? I mean, for everything that he's done for this club, for Koeman to come in and tell him that, are you kidding me? You're the new one here. Don't come to me like that. I mean, I 100% want Messi to go into a good situation. I don't even care where he goes. I mean, there has been some rumors that he's talked to Pep Guardiola about a move to Manchester City, and that would be huge, not just for Manchester City, because obviously they'd be getting the GOAT, but Messi as well, who would be in a really solid situation with a top club in one of the most exciting leagues in the world, the most exciting league in the world. Next, I actually already mentioned this earlier in the show, but Everton and Real Madrid are in talks about James Rodriguez. James is trying to reunite with his former manager, Carlo Ancelotti, and this top transfer could be exactly what Everton and James need to resurrect themselves. Next, we got Luis Suarez is in talks with Inter Miami. The Barcelona meltdown continues as new manager Koeman says he does not want Suarez back with the club. It's been reported that Suarez wants to stay in Europe, but it looks like his best opportunity is going to be with Beckham's side in the States. Some other news that it's not really transfer news, but it's still top news. Conte is staying with Inter as their coach, and that's huge for them because he had a great first season, and there was a lot of talks about whether, who's going to be his replacement, but they won't have to worry about that anymore because Conte is staying. And, of course, this is just terrible news, but Harry Maguire has been found guilty of aggravated assault, resisting arrest, and repeated attempts of bribery in Greece, and has been handed a 21-month suspended sentence. This is just ridiculous. For a top player like Harry Maguire to be in this kind of news, it's terrible. Hopefully it's not true because I've heard he's trying to protest this hearing or this call, but I don't know, man. From what it looks like, apparently the evidence is substantial. So, that would be a huge blow to Manchester United. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because the most exciting part of the show is almost here, as I'm going to be giving you guys my top 10 center backs in the world.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the last part of the show. In the last segment, I talked about the MLS games of this past weekend and, of course, the top news in world soccer today. And now I'm going to be talking about the top 10 center backs in the world. Having a top center back on your squad, it's the backbone to a great team. There are defenders that have speed to keep up with fast attackers, composure with the ball, and of course put their bodies on the line to make sure goal scorers don't get a clear shot at goal. But the best of them all are expected to do all this and more. So let's get right into it with number 10, honestly one of my favorite players to watch now, Oppa Makano of RB Leipzig. Easily the biggest breakout performer on this list, the 21-year-old Frenchman has been intricate to RB Leipzig, finishing third and having the second best defense in the Bundesliga. His performances in the Champions League were ultimately put him into my top 10 center backs in the world, and he was the man of the match against Atletico Madrid in the quarterfinals with his poise and aggressive defense. His ability with the ball is amazing for a young defender, as he's not afraid to make runs when he has the space, and he knows when to make the right pass, as he completes 88.6% of his 70 passes per game. So often you see Leipzig players passing it back to him when they're under pressure because they trust him in making the right decisions. He did sign an extension with Leipzig earlier this year, so his future is with them for the time being. But don't be surprised when you hear his name in transfer rumors to big clubs. When you look at some of these stats, he has a 7.1 overall rating, 2.1 aerials won, 2.1 tackles, which is the most on this list, 1.7 interceptions, 3 clearances per game to go with that 1 assist. Just huge season for Oppa Makano overall this year, and just expect more of the same as time goes on. Now, number 9 on this list, we have Mats Hummels of Borussia Dortmund, another Bundesliga defender. But Hummels, has been one of the best defenders in the world for as long as I can remember. He rejoined Borussia Dortmund this season after playing for Bayern Munich the past 3 years, and he has been the perfect leader for such a young club and was essential to their success in the Bundesliga. He's the most experienced player in the club and has excellent composure with the ball, completing 87% of his 70 passes per game. He lays out his body for his club and more often than not makes attackers regret challenging him. He's got 2.7 aerials per game, 1.9 tackles per game, 2.3 interceptions, and 3.5 clearances to go with his 1 goal and 3 assists. So he obviously can also contribute on the offensive end. So just another great season for Matt Hummels. Just put that along with his already legendary career. So that is exactly why he comes in at number 9. Number 8, we got Matthias Delect of Juventus. Easily the best young defender in the game right now at 21 years old. He broke out last season with Ajax and, like Oppa Makano, showed up in the bright lights of the Champions League. He made the big move to Juve after being linked to so many top clubs like Barcelona, PSG, and he's shown that the hype was there for a reason. This season wasn't on par with what he did at Ajax, but it was still a very strong season for him in what has now been seen as the most electric offensive league in the entire world in Serie A. His combination of size, speed, and leadership make him one of the best defenders in the world today. He's able to muscle off attackers and catch up to players with pace, and that is not something you see very often. When you see his contributions he adds on offense, he completes 90% of his 56 passes per game. It's hard to find many better defenders. And when just on the cherry on top, he added 5 goals on the year, as he's extremely dangerous inside the box, being able to get goals with his head and really solid with his feet. He had a 6.8 overall rating, 2.6 aerials won per game, 0.9 tackles and interceptions per game, and 3.3 clearances. Just a huge season for Delect, as he continues to show that he's going to be on this list for a very, very long time. Next, at number 7, we have Aymeric Laporte of Manchester City. Unfortunately, Laporte had an injury-riddled season, like we've already talked about, and couldn't produce at the high level that we've gotten accustomed to seeing from him. The Manchester City defense was a complete mess for most of the year, and the difference could easily be seen when Laporte wasn't on the field. In Man City's 23 games without him, they had 6 clean sheets. In the 15 games that he played, they had 11 clean sheets. If that doesn't tell you the importance that Laporte had for Manchester City, I don't know what does, honestly. And it's important to mention that even when Man City was without De Bruyne last season, I guess not last season, 2 seasons ago now, they still won the Premier League. So he's essential to the way Pep Guardiola likes to play, as he completes 92% of his 73 passes per game, as well as 4.2 long balls per game. Expect Laporte to get back towards the top of this list with what will hopefully be a healthier 2020-21 season. And then when you look at some of these averages, 1.7 aerials per game, 0.8 tackles, 1.3 interceptions, 1.7 clearances to go with a goal. Just huge season for Laporte, even in an injury-riddled season, and still puts him in the top 10 defenders in the world. So now we're going to be going into another tier, folks. Yes, as always, we get into that next tier of players, and we're going to be talking about Gerard Piquet at number 6 of Barcelona. Piquet is another defender that has been on this type of list for a while now. He's been Barcelona's most consistent defender over the years and finally has a solid backline mate in Lenglet. He's one of the most decorated players on this list with 36 trophies in his legendary career. That includes a World Cup, 4 Champions League titles, and 8 La Liga titles. And despite being a scapegoat early on in his Barcelona career, he has turned into one of the club's best defenders in their history. He does so many great things. He 3.6 aerials per game, 1.1 interceptions, just under a tackle per game, 4.5 clearances, and on top of that, he completes 92% of his 77 passes per game. I would have put him higher on this list, but his performance against Bayern Munich in the historic embarrassment was terrible, like every other player on this team. And unfortunately, it looks like his career at Barcelona is going to end on a sour note. But just a terrible way for such a historic defender like Piquet to go out in that historic club. But yeah, he still comes in at number 6. Huge season from Piquet. Next, we're in the top 5 now, and I'm going to be talking about Harry Maguire of Manchester United, the most expensive defender in the world after his move from Leicester City last year. I believe he moved for like over 100 million euros. Just ridiculous. It was somewhere in that range, but just a ridiculous amount of money for a defender. And but for all the hate that he was getting for not being as big of an impact as Van Dyke was at Liverpool, he had a very solid season. I mean, when you spend that much on a player, I understand there's going to be some question marks, but Maguire has proven the doubters wrong. He even became the captain of Manchester United in just his first season. When you see a manager putting that much responsibility in a new player, you know that he's got what it takes. And he provided a calming presence in the back line for Manchester United that they have been missing since the likes of Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic. I mean, obviously 2 legendary defenders there, and for Manchester United to bring in a top of the line defender like Maguire, I mean, it's huge. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation, like I've already talked about earlier in this episode, about him possibly getting a huge 21-month suspension. So this is going to be probably the last time you see him on a list like this for some time. But he improved. But aside from that, he improved with the ball, completing 87% of his 66 passes per game to go with his 4.6 long balls, and he was even stronger for them in the Europa League. He has 4.5 aerials per game, 1.8 interceptions, 1 tackle per game, 3.9 clearances. I mean, just an overall strong season from Maguire, and hopefully the news about him is not true, so we can continue to get that high level of play from him. Next, now this is the top of the top. I mean, these are the top defenders in my eyes in the entire world, and we're getting into that new tier of players. And starting off at number 4, we got Rafael Varan of Real Madrid. Varan has been one of the most successful defenders on this list. A lot of that could be due to the fact that he's been with one of the top clubs in the world in Real Madrid. But he's been a huge part of Real Madrid's success over the years. He's won a World Cup, 4 Champions Leagues, 3 La Liga titles, among others, to total 19 titles at the age of 27. Very, very impressive. Varan is probably the fastest defender on this list, and he has the strength to match. This easily makes him one of the best defenders in the world. However, the finish to this season was terrible for him, though, with 2 ridiculous errors against Manchester City that ultimately ended their season. I almost put him a bit lower on this list because of that, but domestically, he was huge for Real Madrid and was one of the keys to them reclaiming their La Liga title. Some of the top stats for him, he had 2.4 aerials per game to go along with 1 tackle and interception per game and 3.5 clearances. Next, at number 3, we're going to be talking about Kalido Kulibali of Napoli. This was not the type of season you expect from Kulibali, who has been the biggest defensive name on the market for a while now. This was the first season he actually didn't even contribute with a goal or assist since 2015. But he's still one of the most complete defenders in the world. He's excellent in the air and on the ground and is probably the strongest player on this entire list, while also being extremely quick for his size. He'll rarely make mistakes in the back line, knowing when to commit for a tackle and keeping that defensive stability for Napoli. However, in the quarterfinal matchup, the round of 16 matchup against Barcelona, he completely fell apart in that second leg, making Messi completely made him look like a third tier defender, and it was just a tough ending for him. But when you look at the type of stats that he has, 2 aerials and 2 tackles won per game, 1.3 interceptions, and he completes 90% of his 66 passes per game to go with nearly 5 long balls per game. An overall solid season for Kulibali, and he will continue to be the top transfer, the top defender in the transfer rumors, as he's already linked to Manchester City. So it'll be interesting to see if he can finally find a way out of Napoli and onto a top club. Now we got, I'm going to say it, this is the next tier. I'm going to say it. Just heck with it. These 2 defenders have separated themselves as the cream of the crop at this position. And we're going to be starting, you might be surprised by this, but number 2, Virgil van Dyke of Liverpool. Van Dyke is the most complete defender in the world. He'll be the backbone of your defense and be the biggest threat in the box off a cross, all while being the leader and voice of your club. He's been an amazing leader for Liverpool, and which is extremely needed from them to get to the next level after those years of mediocrity. His heading is the best in the world with his contribution of size and strength. He wins 4.9 aerials per game, by far the most of anyone on this list. He's also extremely smart and composed in tight situations. He knows what decisions to make when the ball's in the air. And when you have an attacker heading your way, that's a lot of the time you'll see a defender. Not the best, and especially not Virgil van Dijk, but that's when they lose composure and make mistakes. Not Van Dijk. When you have that kind of composure, that's what you like from your best defender. He's also very strong with the ball at his feet, completing 89% of his 87 passes per game to go with 6.2 long balls per game. Also tops this list. He's got a couple other stats to just round him out. He's got 1.1 interceptions per game, 4.2 clearances to go along with 5 goals and 1 assist. Now, for the top spot of this list, to me, I know people could switch 2 and 1, plenty, but for me, Sergio Ramos of Real Madrid is the best defender in the entire world. And it's incredible. Ramos is back to the top with one of his best seasons in his storied career. He's the best leader on this list, as he can do it all for his club. And if we're going just off the play before the restart, Ramos probably, before the restart, Ramos probably comes in at number 2. But what he was able to do for Real Madrid in the final 11 games of the La Liga season were just legendary. His 13 goals this year, his 13 goals on the year are by far the most of any defender in the world, and he was actually the team's leading scorer during the restart. Think about that. A defender was your leading scorer. And when you got guys like Benzema, you got Modric on that squad, I mean, you got a lot of top attacking sides. And Ramos led them? I mean, that's huge. I mean, but of course, he's a defender. So he made sure to contribute on that side as well with 2.1 aerials per game, 1.2 tackles, 1.5 interceptions, and 2.9 clearances per game. I mean, just an absolute ridiculous season from Sergio Ramos, and is the reason why Real Madrid one of the key reasons why Real Madrid have the best defense in the entire world right now. And I said that Virgil van Dijk led this list with 6.2 long balls. However, it was actually Sergio Ramos with 6.7 long balls per game to go with his 91% pass completion. Like, just overall huge season for Ramos. And at the age of 34, I mean, you got to enjoy it while you have it, man. Just enjoy it while we can, guys. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm excited to continue to keep bringing this out to you guys. But as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.